Well, I had no idea that the 90s hip hop beat making discussion would turn into a little bit of a thing. I mean, I had an inkling that I was opening the proverbial can of worms, but apparently you guys want to discuss 90s beats and beat making. I mean, the comments are off the charts, and I appreciate all of them. And it's some. I mean, the idea that you guys want to talk about this stuff is awesome. It the comments in particular brought up tons of new thoughts that I could bring to you as far as from my session days in the 90s. A lot of this stuff, I was talking to another friend of mine about, a lot of this stuff, it's sort of, when you're around it enough or you've been down that road a million times, you kind of take for granted that what you know, like as far as, wow, I didn't know someone didn't know that, because for one, you spend the entire time in a bubble working, and you don't have these discussions all that much with other, especially up and coming new guys. The comments are off the charts. I'm going to definitely do some more stuff about the whole Dilla quantizing, whether he didn't, he did. We know he didn't at times. There's so much more to it, and I like to see the spicy debates, but there's some things you'll just never know. You're only guessing, and also the amount of variables that I could get into if I really want to nerd out and tell you like some of the nitty gritty, because you don't have a time machine, and you can't go back to what it was like to be in those rooms. I'm going to try and give you a feel for it, if I can, down the line. Now, that being said, this is definitely not a 90s beats hip hop channel. I'm more about, music in general, music production, making music, and even just life stuff or whatever. On a life tip or music tip, and this is something you guys might want to go back to. One of the records that got me into production, and the mindset of production early on in my music career, is a record I listened to it last night while taking a little stroll around the neighborhood and having a cigar. Prince, Sign of the Times. I think if you want to go to school a little bit, sit down with a copy of that, no visuals, turn your phone off, put it on Do Not Disturb, play Sign of the Times from beginning to end, and you will get a feel for something that inspired a whole bunch of work following that. And, even still to this day, or even not too long ago, like you can't listen to Sign of the Times and not hear Frank Ocean. And I would hope that Frank Ocean would concur that without Sign of the Times there is no Orange album, or that version of Frank Ocean. Tremendous record, made in a whole different kind of way. That was the Lindrum LM1, which I have a good story about. Real quickly, someone commented that I have an enigmatic way of shifting topics, and this is one of them. So, somewhere around 2004 or 5, I was still working with Alicia Keys full time, and And I know you guys are going to fact check that too. Apparently everything gets sort of fact checked. But we had just started putting together the oven out in Long Island. That was a whole nother long story. But Diary of Alicia Keys was done. I was visiting someone in my old neighborhood in New Jersey, and I popped into my favorite old school guitar shop that was in the neighborhood. And this guy always had some weird stuff floating around in like behind the counter or underneath the counter, like trade-ins and things like that. So I walked in one day, and this guy sold no keyboards basically, or no MIDI shit. And I look and I see a mint condition Lindrum, the original one with the wood sides, LM1 or LN1. I think it's LM1. I said, his name was John. I said, John, what's up with the drum machine? It's like, oh, some guy traded that in. I said, how much you want for it? It's like, oh, give me $200 for it. I whipped out the $200, took it. I brought it to Long Island, to Alicia's studio the next day, and gave it to her and Kerry Brothers, and just said, like, hey, you know, this is the drum machine Prince used, you know, back in the day. You can just have it, like, keep it as like a fun thing to have hanging around. Apparently no one knows what happened to it. I think they're worth, I've seen anywhere between $5,000 and $8,000 now. I don't know. It's gone. So I'll do a couple of things here that you guys might want to think about with regards to the 90s sound. And you could probably do an experiment if you want to. We mix those things on those records predominantly on Neve VRs, which were not vintage Neves. There were only a few vintage Neves in, let's just say, in New York at the time. And no one was using them really for hip-hop records. Those were like, they weren't being used. Let's just put it that way. One room that it was in was a little bit more of a tracking room and more of a rock room. Another one was another tracking room. So the records you're hearing that you love were mixed on Neve VRs, which were new, and SSLGs, which were sort of new at the time. The other thing is, and this is probably the thing you can experiment with. So if you got yourself a vinyl copy of anything you love, maybe it's early Tribe Called Quest album or something, get a vinyl copy, record it into your DAW, into your Pro Tools or something like that, by, you know, using a turntable and a preamp or something. Get it in there. Take a listen to what it sounds like, and then in Pro Tools, crush it with a modern limiter, like a modern plugin, and go for the gain reduction that is on records today, and you will hear a massive difference in what happens to all of the sonics. Because I think you can even do the experiment yourself, like make a beat, and turn off all your limiting and compression, and that's what we were sending to mastering. Like, no one was doing hard limiting and hard compression on a mix bus. We were compressing kick drums and snare drums, and maybe doing a drum bus here and there, some guys. Maybe we were triggering a sample here and there, and those were all with zero dynamics. But there's massive things that happen to your grooves, and I'm just speaking like on your drum groove type of thing, when you crank up limiting on it. So that's just one thing. We can get into that. I left a couple of names out on the producers I worked with. I worked with Kanye a few times. Scott Storch, sort of, a couple of times, sort of once. Prestige was the name that I left out. Rashad Smith, Tumbling Dice, and Chucky Thompson. Those were a couple others. Nasheem Myrick was another one that was like, those were really quick. Speaking of the nitty gritty, picking on everything that someone says thing, some guy literally in the comments said, when you stammered and said, Devante Smith, I mean swing, then I knew you lost all credibility. I mean, really? I can't stammer? I mean, I looked down at my scratchy writing, I saw Devante, and for some reason I saw Smith, but I clearly know his name is Devante Swing. And I got to be honest with you, no one ever called him Devante Swing. It was just Devante. On the Devante topic, someone in the comments opined that how he's sort of overlooked and a massive talent. I will tell you this: some of the greatest sessions that I witnessed on a music making tip was Devante, early Devante. He was quite a trip, and I will tell you this: sitting at the console waiting for him to make beats, because he was just basically hanging around and learning, was an unknown guy at the time by the name of Timbaland. So anyway, thanks, and I'll be back for more.